People who grew up poor earn more, save more, and still report feeling like they are one missed paycheck from disaster, not because they are irrational, because their brain was literally rewired by the experience of not having enough, and that rewiring does not undo itself when the money arrives. The threat is gone. The nervous system never got the memo. Scientists have a name for what poverty does to a developing brain. They call it an allostatic load, the cumulative biological cost of living under chronic stress. When a child grows up in an environment where food is unpredictable, where the heat might get shut off, where raised voices signal real danger, the brain adapts. It shifts its entire operating budget toward survival. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for long-term planning and calm decision-making, gets less investment. Meanwhile, the amygdala, your threat detector, runs hot, loud, and almost constantly. This is not a character flaw. This is engineering. The brain builds the machine the environment demands. And here's the part that almost nobody talks about. Once that machine is built, it keeps running. You get the job, you pay the bills, you fill the refrigerator, and your amygdala does not care. It was not trained on your current bank balance. It was trained on the winter you were 11 years old and your mother cried quietly in the kitchen because there was not enough. That memory is encoded at a cellular level. Researchers at the University of British Columbia found that adults who experienced childhood poverty showed measurably higher amygdala reactivity to threatening images decades later, even after controlling for their current income. Their brains were scanning for danger that statistically no longer existed. The poverty was over. The threat response was not. This is why people who grew up with nothing can sit inside a comfortable life and still feel the pull to work just one more hour, take just one more client, skip the vacation because what if? The brain is not confused. It is doing exactly what it learned to do. Rest, in its original training data, was a liability. Rest was what happened before things fell apart. There is also something called hypervigilance to scarcity cues. People who grew up poor are significantly faster at noticing price changes, significantly more sensitive to the word free, and significantly more likely to feel a physical stress response when spending money, even money they absolutely have. Researchers describe it as a perceptual system permanently tuned to the financial channel, unable to change the station. And it compounds. The chronic low-level vigilance burns cortisol. Elevated cortisol over time degrades sleep quality. Poor sleep degrades the prefrontal cortex, the very part of the brain you would use to rationally evaluate whether you are actually safe. So, the system that poverty damaged is further damaged by the stress of surviving poverty's aftermath. The hole digs itself. There is a cruel irony buried in here. The people most likely to be labeled bad with money, impulsive, short-sighted, unable to delay gratification, are often the people whose brains were rationally optimized for a world where delay meant loss. When resources are unreliable, spending now is the correct strategy. Saving assumes tomorrow will be stable. For a lot of childhoods, tomorrow was not stable. The brain learned accordingly. Princeton economist Sendhil Mullainathan and psychologist Eldar Shafir spent years studying this and arrived at a term that clarifies everything. Scarcity captures the mind, not metaphorically, literally. Scarcity commandeers cognitive bandwidth the way a loud noise in a quiet room collapses your attention. You cannot think about the future clearly because the present is so loud. And for people who grew up poor, that loudness gets hardwired in. So what do you do with this? The first thing is to stop calling it anxiety and start calling it adaptation. Your nervous system is not broken. It was shaped by real conditions. That reframe matters because you cannot fix something you are ashamed of. You can only fix something you understand. And understanding this changes the question from why can I not relax to what does my brain still believe about the world. The second thing is that the brain remains plastic, not infinitely, not easily, but genuinely. Consistent safety, the felt experience of security repeated over time, slowly updates the threat model. This is not a weekend fix. Neuroscientists talk about years of accumulated calm as the counter-dose. Stable relationships, predictable routines, deliberate rest. The brain has to collect enough data points of safety before it begins to revise its assumptions. You have enough. Every number confirms it. And yet your body will not stop. That is not weakness, and it is not ingratitude. It is a nervous system still doing its job, still protecting a child who no longer needs protecting. The work of recovery is not earning more. It is slowly, patiently, teaching your brain that the emergency is over. That is the hardest thing a person who grew up poor will ever have to do, and almost nobody tells them it is even necessary.